Hey guys, how are we going? It's VaulSC. We're going to take a look at a battle report between Aleph, the OSS Sectorial, and PanOceania, the Acontecimento Sectorial, and it's going to be on Frostbyte. For this game, I am going to be rolling out a list that I call Human Resources. I like to mix it up sometimes and play different interesting lists, but this time it's going to be coming back to a list that I've played a couple of times in the past. This is my default OSS list, and it's around about the best, most optimized OSS list that I can come up for my style. It might not be the best one for your style, but for me, this is the most that I can squeeze out of OSS, which are already a really ball-busting sectorial. And sometimes I feel like it's a good idea to come back and play a list again a few times if you think it's a really good list, because that's the best way to test it. For my YouTube channel, I really like, playing a lot of different factions, a lot of different lists for variety, but it's still important to come back to the ones that are really good just to try and, get a bit more of a feel for them, because you may play them in tournaments a bit more often. So let's go back to it, work out what's in it. So Diva MSV2 Spitfire, backed up by the full link. It's hard to go wrong with that. When you're moving out with your really crushing Alpha Strike, or later in the game you're going to go and deliver the killing blow, you've got so many orders backed up there. The Lieutenant, obviously, Strategos 1, giving you +1 order. If you're moving up the first turn, counterintelligence really helps. And if they're going to be hiding from you with smoke, with ODD, camo, the Diva's really going to crush them. For the long range, of course, you've got the Dakini TACbot HMG with assisted fire coming in from the Proxy Mark 1 hacker. That is going to just devastate anything long range. It's probably the most points cost efficient ARO sweeper in the game. You, of course, have the Sophatect in the same group, ready to revive the Dakini if it, loses the firefight for some reason, goes into remote presence, unconscious level 2. It's not removed from the board. It's immune to shock. You put it back up there, and suddenly, whatever you've calculated on Dice Calculator to kill the enemy target, the dice aren't really capturing the fact that it gets another go at it. So realistically, if your only goal is to kill that one enemy sniper in the distance, your chances of doing it with the Sophatec backup and assisted fire on that bot and the link team are close to 99% for getting it done that turn. Dakini's in the link, TACbot, paramedic for a specialist. We've got the CSU boarding shotgun. I quite like just the plain boarding shotgun because it saves a point, and you can take the other CSU in the same group. If you feel for some reason you'll need more specialists, you can sub in this CSU instead of this CSU. But having a boarding shotgun there means that the link team has that really powerful close range burst potential, and it is BS12. Sometimes you'll pick up an interesting metachemistry roll to help him with the charge effort. Of course, you've got all the bots in the list, Probots and Lameds. Group 2 does feature a DASU Forward Observer, just a top quality midfield specialist that can also do a lot of killing, can lay mines, can throw down nanopulsar. Very rare to see that in a TO camo infiltrator. And of course the trio of proxies. I really like the inclusion of the heavy rocket launcher as well as the multi-sniper, because it makes this list so good at defending. If you don't get first turn or don't want to take first turn, you can just hold them at bay for a long time. So this list very capable of doing Frostbite, as it is with most other missions. Just a really strong OSS list in my view. Coming over to my opponent, he's playing a variation of, this is my buddy Admiral JCF, by the way, JCJF. He played a very similar list against me in the INZO tournament, where it was the second last round and it was Deshat, and you guys might remember his Tiki Balang play. It's a very similar list, and I've reconstructed this from memory. It hasn't come from an army code. I might have got this wrong with the groupings, what's in what group, but it's roughly as follows. The Tiki Balang, he knows that he's playing on my spaceship table with, walls that aren't very conducive to climbing plus, but he's going to give the Tiki Balang a go anyway. And Tiki Balang makes a decent data tracker because it's reasonably defensive, being a tag and with an engineer backing it up, but also the mines and mimetism helps it to survive even when it's closer to enemy territory. So that's pretty cool. His link team has the multi-sniper. He also has an HMG, which he can throw into the link team if he wants to, but I rarely see him do that. My personal preference for the sectorial is to make use of the Orc Trooper with Feuerbark for the ARO potential. The Bagmari, it's nice, but it's only got one wound, it's not immune to shock, and there are things that can sort of get around his abilities. So yeah, the Orc Feuerbark I think is better because of the armor and the punishment that it can dish out with that explosive round. But I don't really play the Sectorial, I haven't really tried that out, I'm not too sure how that would really go over a long sample of games. He's got all the bots there, I love seeing that. Naga, Killer Hacker, usually we see Dart, but he's going for the Killer Hacker this time around. It's just a really solid choice. Overall, I find this list to be pretty strong. It's got a lot of mines to defend with, it's very hard to crack. But yeah, the only thing that I would do differently as an Acontecimento player, playing a list of this size, would really be to run Orc Troopers in the Link team, and rather than the tag, I'd have a Bulleteer and an extra specialist perhaps, maybe something else from the mid-range crowd, but it's hard to say. I haven't really spent a lot of time doing list building. So our scenario is going to be Frostbyte. Let's minimize the camera and go have a look at the table. So again, we're still experimenting with my table here of the spaceship terrain. We'll have a look at it. My opponent wins the dice roll for Lieutenant Roll-Off and decides to go for the table side that he prefers. I've deliberately constructed this table in such a way that one of the table sides, in fact over here, has a bit better terrain. So we've got Acontecimento sitting up here, and I'm relegated to taking this side. Normally, with a mission like Frostbyte and with a list that defends so well, I would take second turn. I've decided to go for first turn for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because I've got counterintelligence and Strategos 1 and such a powerful link team and swift link team and decisive link team, I think I can get a lot of damage done with the first turn, and I can continue following up that damage so that in round 3, my data tracker is going to be in the mid zone and he's not going to be able to clear it out, and I may have killed his data tracker by then. So this mission's about taking this middle exclusion zone with your data tracker. Of course, you can turn on the consoles marked here, here, and here to turn on the heaters, but that's a secondary thing a lot of the time when it comes to this mission. Anyway, my opponent's picked up the side, I've taken this side and gone first. Another thing is that this particular table side doesn't really have a lot of space to deploy things, and it's not very good to defend on. And if he has a really good run with a tag or a bulleteer or whatever he may throw at me, even Dart, hurling some EM grenades at my Dakinis, that could be a really bad way to start the game. So I'm feeling more confident taking first turn just in this particular scenario. But if the deployment zone was much better, I probably would have gone for second. Taking a hidden deployment photo of my DASU. This is going to be in my initial deployment behind this little billboard. I'll just quickly mark out where that is. So right here, that's where there's going to be a DASU. Everybody else is deployed behind. So the main link team in the center, they're planning on moving out in this direction when the game starts. Then I've got the posthumans mostly on this side of the table over here. Let's take a close look at that deployment. So left-hand zone, as I showed up to the table with my army packed up in a bag, I realized that my Dakini paramedic was missing, so I had to use a Aspara as the Dakini paramedic. It's such a beautiful model, and I'd love to be able to put the Aspara in the actual link team, but you can't do that, so Aspara is not in the list. Flashpulse spot over here, we've got the Netrod landing successfully on the table. We've got the Mulebot here behind, one of the only pieces of cover it can fit behind. Then the link team leader is going to be the HMG. This HMG is in a great spot because he only needs to wiggle a little bit to be able to shoot enemies off in the distance along these fire lanes. And of course, with the Sophitek right next to him, she should be able to revive him. Acontecimento, I don't see them take a lot of template long-range guns like heavy rocket launchers and missile launchers, so I'm not too worried about the Dakini being targeted by a template in this instance. But there's the link team there. We've got 2 Dakinis to the left, 1 to the middle, the Diva further along there, and the CSU over here up prone as well. CSU has rolled up Climbing Plus, not going to be very useful on this map, but the other CSU does get 8-4 speed, which is a lovely one to get. Closer look, so you can see Dakini on the left, ready to shoot enemy ARO pieces as it's designed to. The hacker's going to be just behind it. Sophitek there to revive him. Diva and CSU prone nearby. Moving to the right-hand side of my deployment, we've got the Lieutenant Shooker Consultant behind these blue boxes, prone, staying out of harm's way. There's a flashball spot which you can see along there and along there. It's That could be useful to defend later in the game. Net rod lands successfully towards the middle next to my HVT. We have another CSU who gained the extra speed. She can see just barely along here. It's helping to cover the back line in case there's an Akali dropping in. Minesweeper at the back. Note that there's going to be a post-human deployed hidden deployment there later as a reserve. It's going to have a really long lane of fire right down here, which is going to be brutal. And I'm also going to put my Mark IV there to cover this side of the table, and you'll see that in a future photo. My opponent deploying second, he's got a flashball spot to the extreme right-hand side of his flank. Nick Naga, just covering this little angle here around the side of the table. Does have an HMG Bagmari here, just in total cover. Then there's another flashball spot, Minesweeper, and a Doctor tucked in there. And then we've got the Machinist's Palbot to help out these spots on this side. Machinist is sitting way up the back here. Then his link team in this area behind there, and he's even got a Bagmari watching the position where the Dakinis are. And this is a deployment that I'll criticize a little bit. The Bagmari has a multi-sniper. He's in a link team. He's got MSV1 and Mimetism. So at face value, he's designed for AROing, right? He's also very good in attack, but you think if you want to stop an enemy advance, you put him there. He's quite a tough nut to crack. But on a more advanced level of play, if you know you're up against OSS, if your opponent's already deployed first and already put a Dakini TACbot there, and you suspect there's already going to be assisted fire going onto him, do you really want to give your opponent the opportunity to just kill your Bagmari and remove him with shot first turn? There is that. We'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. So, closer look at the link team. You can see the Bagmari is poking out, is watching the table, and then you've got a basic line trooper there, the lieutenant at the back in the link team, and then the other two mine layers nearby, and they are all setting up the mines. So, this Bagmari is able to put a mine nearby, this guy's able to put a mine over here, and there's another one putting a mine on the other side of the wall, so very well defended with the mine field. Further towards the left-hand side, there's another baggage bot and flash pulse bot to the far extreme left corner, HVT out in the midfield. This is a mine which is positioned by this irregular there. This is a mine which is positioned by the guy further across, and there's also going to be a mine again somewhere in that little field. So that's a pretty decent Bagmari and regular deployment for Acontecimento. We've got a Tech B position there, although he ended up realizing he'd placed the War Core and the Tech B in the wrong location, so we swapped them around after this photo was taken. So we're redoing that. War Core going here, and then the Tech B going somewhere else. So War Core is actually covering this angle through there, and the Tech B's at the back, right? So you can sort of see it. We've got the Bagmari in position there, and he's got a long lane of fire through here, through that open wall, through to this angle here. So if I move my link team out, and I'll just in pink show the plan. Looking at the board, I'm thinking about moving the link team out first turn. I've got Counterintelligence Strategos 1, and I'm thinking about moving through here. As I do so, I'm going to be able to knock out whatever that camo marker is. I know it's not a mine, because it's not within range of any models that could have placed it. As I'm moving through this corridor, I should be able to eliminate the Bagmari HMG, the War Core, and then if I get right to the back, I could even munch these bots, and if I have enough orders left, I can actually move back around here behind this white container and just camp. Like, everybody can just hide out back here. Or if something goes wrong and I only make it half the way there, I can actually just pull back and just try and hide behind this wall, for example, or back to the starting location, because I'll have like 10 orders to do this with. So seeing that, is this Bagmari in a good spot? I don't really think so, but where else would you put it? I'm thinking maybe the Bagmari could have been a little bit further back, just not covering that long line, but covering the back line or just some shorter angles, and just allow your opponent to commit to doing a little bit of damage. It's hard to say though, because if you're not sort of forcing them to spend an extra order or two, they've got an even longer run. It's just whether you feel like your important link team member is worth that. So I'll let you guys have a think about how you like that tactic. Okay, so there are the mines, there's the overview. My reserve trooper comes down, and it is a post-human, so that means I place all 3 models in succession in that reserve trooper placement. The Mark IV heavy rocket launcher on the right-hand side, just love this model to death, I think it's really cool. And helpfully, the Sophatex bot is nearby to him, so if he doesn't move out in the first turn, at least he's got a Yud bot helping him if he does go down. Hacker deployed prone behind this box, right behind the Dakini HMG's position, so that it can provide assisted fire from Group 2's orders initially. and then this posthuman here, just covering this extreme long angle through the table. After I set the table up, I didn't realize how massive a line he has, but hey, I've got an ability to abuse it now, so that's what's going to happen. And there are quite a lot of infiNity tables in the sort of open plan environment that have equally long sight lanes. It's not that uncommon. So after actually hang on, one more thought. Data trackers, I'm choosing the Sofitect as my data tracker because it's not going to see much combat. It's also very fast, and you can use the data tracker's free order in this mission for doing some doctoring and reviving Dakinis, for example. So that's going to make it even more efficient to revive my Dakini HMG if he does lose the combat and gets hit. My opponent placing a Tikkabilung in amongst the Link team, and that is going to be his data tracker, and he's placed it in total cover. Just coming back to this recurring theme of using the sniper as the ARO piece, the sniper's a bit vulnerable to just being removed from the board, whereas if, for example, you put the Tikkabilung there, the Tikkabilung can use its mimetism, can use its high armor, can benefit from cover, and you can just drop him back into total cover if he loses a couple of wounds and revive him with the engineer, whereas you can't do that as easily with the Bagmari because they're just going to get shocked off the table. So maybe another way of defending would have been to put the tag somewhere where it's actually bisecting with an ARO field of view through part of the table. So here it comes. I am going to go for it. We're going to try and move across the table, and the Dakini is moving into the line of sight of the Bagmari. Now, I thought this was a bit risky because I felt like I might have been very close to being out of range, and when we checked it, it did turn out that I was out of range, so a couple of inches too far away. After measuring it, we found that the edge of the range finished around about there. Okay, so with the Dakini's initial position here, what I could do is move 3 inches out to this spot and then 3 inches back again, and that would mean I would get into range, but I would lose cover. It's definitely better to gift the Bagmari with an extra +3 for having no cover than it is to lose the swing of 6, because you're going from +3 to hit to -3 to hit. So it's definitely a trade-off, and had I known that I needed to move out to that position, I would have, because even if you lose the combat, you're coming back to cover. Likely you're not going to take 3 wounds in 1 hit, and the Sofitect can just revive you with the data tracker's order. So this is a mistake. I'm not particularly happy about this move, but luckily it's kind of a forgivable mistake because it only has to happen once. If I do die, I can revive my guy and do it correctly the second time around. What I've done earlier is I've just prepared some stats because I know that you guys like this kind of thing. And if we have a look, this is the face-to-face roll situation if the Dakini was in range. We know it's not, but if I had gotten into range, 54.38% chance that the Bagmari is just removed from the table because of shock, and only a 27% chance that I actually, have to spend an order on the Sofitect reviving it, and only a 3% chance that it's going to remove the Dakini completely. So that's very, very unlikely. So that's really good looking odds, and even though 54% might not seem like very much, if you are able to have another go at it and another go at it every time you revive, it's going to be closer to 99%. Not that, actually the 3% chance of taking 3 wounds is probably, like 90. This next page is where I've gone over and I've changed the Dakini's range band to long range, but I've kept the Bagmari at good range band, and this is the more interesting view. So there's still a 31% chance of actually killing that Bagmari. There's a 15% chance of nothing happening, which means that you've survived and you can spend your next order moving out into correct range. A 53% chance that he wins, that's fine, you can revive him. And still only an 11.39% chance that you lose the Dakini completely. So this was a mistake, but as we can see from the math, it wasn't an absolutely crippling, unforgivable mistake because I can still recover from it. What actually happens in the game is that I get rather lucky and I get a crit, and he doesn't get a crit, so that the Bagmari is just killed anyway, crit on an 8. There was a full 3 in 10 chance of that happening, so it wasn't out of the question. It was lucky, definitely lucky, but it wasn't completely, uncalled for, unlikely, unheard of that might be the case. So there we go. The link team now moves out, and they're just going to go over and try and inflict a crippling amount of damage on the Acontecimento corner where they're weak, where there's no mines, and hopefully have 1 or 2 orders spare to pull back into a position where they're in enough cover that the retaliation turn won't wipe them all out. It's a bit audacious, but I'm really feeling it this point in the game. So we get to move all the way around here, and the first model we come into line of sight of is the Warcore. And when you've got a Dakini with HMG and Mimetism and Assisted Fire, 5 dice, it's really going to shred the Warcore, and that it does. There is a camo marker further on this side of the table, but we know it's a mine, so obviously no reaction from that. Actually, I also need to point out that given the architecture of these walls, we are also not coming into line of sight of anybody involved in the link team now that the Bagmari's gone down and his Tech B's behind the objective there, the heater. So now that we're moving in, the next problem to try and solve is this camo marker here, and I don't know whether it's Dart or a Naga or what. Just at this point in the game, for some reason I felt like it was going to be Dart. So I didn't want to move, too much of the link team into line of sight just in case there was an EM grenade. Also, I was kind of worried about Dart being able to sustain multiple wounds, and if I didn't have shock, it might take too long to kill it. So initially, I'm moving my my short-range trooper, the Dakini TACbot, without assisted fire, but a combi rifle, into range here. And the way I'm doing this is to come in line of sight of a flash pulse bot over here. The point is that if this camo marker reveals to do something, the Dakini gets to shoot it. But if it doesn't reveal, I shoot the flash pulse bot, right? If the camo marker does reveal and I shoot it, the flash pulse hits me for free, but that's okay. The Dakini's got a little bit of BTS if I recall correctly, and if this model's blinded, it doesn't matter so long as I've taken out the camo marker, because I've got the rest of the link team to switch the leader over to and continue the turn. So that's the tactic being used here, and my opponent decides not to react with the camo marker, just the flash pulse, so I then shoot the flash pulse bot successfully, destroying it. And that sets me up in a position where in the following order I can declare a discover shoot in combination, which forces a bit more action from the camo marker, because if it delays, there's a good chance of it being discovered and, getting shot for free. So that's the situation we're in the following order, spinning the order, declaring a discover shoot after the flash pulse bot's been taken down. Now it turns out that it's a Naga killer hacker or forward observer, can't remember. And he's responding by planting a mine. And I feel like this is me being a bit complacent and just forgetting that this is a real strong possibility. This plays good, and the problem for me is that I've accidentally left a Dakini HMG over this side of the crate, around about here. And the mine actually will go off on both models next order. So luckily for me, I am able to shoot the Dakini for free and kill him. Which is important because he had Dogged, and there was a high chance here that he could have actually survived in Dogged and laid even more mines as I went to deal with him. So that would have been horrible, but now there's a mine here, and I feel like my plan of inflicting a lot of damage on this flank is slowly starting to slip away from me a little bit because already I'm encountering a bit of a setback. So looking at the position here, after talking about the situation and talking about the rules a little bit, I proposed one thing that I could do, and my opponent agreed that it would be legal, although now that we're posting on YouTube, you guys will have an opportunity to tell us whether what we're doing here is not legal. So here's what I'm planning on doing. I'm planning on disbanding the link team by spending a command token to reform a link team that does not involve this Dakini here, but simply involves these 4 models. So I believe at least that much is legal. I don't know whether you're allowed to just ditch your link team without doing anything, but I'm pretty sure it's at least possible to reform a new link team featuring different models, even though it's just a subsection of your previous link team. I think that is possible. What this will allow me to do is move these 4 without moving this model, and that means the mine won't be triggered. And my thought there is that this model still blocks line of sight to the Dakini, even though it's, an enemy from the mine's perspective. Again, this might be contentious. The thinking here is I can move this link team into total cover, and the mine should then be okay. If there was a wall here, that would definitely be the case, because the mine can't shoot through the wall, it needs line of sight. But do enemy models block line of sight to other enemy models for the purposes of the mine triggering? I think that they do. Like this model should block line of sight for this model for the purposes of it triggering, because this model is not part of the order. So my opponent agreed with that. Again, that might not be correct. If it hadn't been correct, what I would have to be doing here is moving out with both Dakinis and declaring a dodge. I think that's the only thing I have left to do. Sadly, Dakinis will be dodging on like a 4, because it's -3 for being remotes, -3 for dodging against the mine. Then they've got an armor save on like a 13 plus, or even 14 if they've got no armor, can't remember. I think they've got 1 armor. And I could lose both Dakinis, which would be really, really annoying. But as it happened, moved the guys out of the way, and then with the following order and another command token to reform a 5-man link, we're now going to move Dakini over here to see the Bagmari. The mine's going to blow up and go onto this guy and potentially blow him up as well. So that was my way around it. Unfortunately, that's cost me additional 2 command tokens and an additional order, at least above and beyond what I planned to spend. So this push is not really going as well as I hoped. What does happen though is the Dakini is destroyed by the mine, so this model is wrecked. The Bagmari is taken out by the combi rifle, and then we can have a 4-man link team, and this is going to cost yet another command token to reform, so 1 command token left. And now we can move out with just the last couple of orders here. I thought about pushing back and hiding, but knowing that they're probably going to get hunted down anyway, I thought I'd make a last gasp attempt to try and block them as much as I could. And if I went to hide, that would mean the Doctor would be able to go over and revive the Bagmari, which is something I don't want. So we're moving in here with the last part of the pull, and we're sending the link team over to the Diva MSV2 Spitfire. Note that this is a 4-man link team now, no extra ballistic skill, and she's able to fire at this flashball spot, at this helper bot for the engineer, and at this minesweeper bot. Can't affect the Doctor, which is in total cover. We're also setting up a couple of guys into total cover, and another guy hiding back here on the side of the table, behind my face. So that was this guy here I was just talking about here. And Diva's just going to try and get the damage done. So he responds just by dodging and flash pulsing and doing whatever he can, and the resulting scenario is that this Palbot's destroyed. That's going to be important later. This flashball spot somehow manages to live, so he's okay, and this Mulebot is destroyed. So at least I've taken a few guys out. I've taken down the Warcore, I've taken down the Naga, I've taken down the Bagmari, I've taken down 2 bots, I've taken down another Bagmari. So the turn's been reasonably fruitful, but I've already lost 1 Dakini, and I've left another 4 members of the link team out there where they should be, punished. Here's where we go into the second phase of the plan. Part of the reason why I was pushing out in that first turn with that link team was that I felt like I could predict where my opponent would need to move to clean them up, and try and put some pressure on those lanes with my posthumans, knowing that this is a faction that's not really going to have smoke unless he's brung the Guarda del Assalto. So what we're doing here with Group 2's orders is moving the posthuman heavy rocket launcher across the table to this spot here. Good thing about facing Acontecimento is you know that they have no TO camo model, so what you see is what you get. So moving out to the spot here is going to allow me to cover this line through there, and we're going to know that the tag, which is behind that wall, is going to need to move around the back here to take out my link team. Or if he comes through the front, there's going to be a posthuman sniper down through this angle as well. So I'm just trying to buy myself some time. If he's only got, say, 7 orders to spend, if he's going to take 2 or 3 orders to kill the heavy rocket launcher, that might not give him enough orders to go through and completely sweep my team, which is the plan here. So just setting up there to cover that angle through to his deployment zone. Elsewhere, just shifting the position of this bot. I had 1 spare order in Group 2, and I'm just trying to position it so it's not, being seen on either side of that white box. And yeah, we're good. The Sophitect also able to use its data tracking order to move the Pelbot, Udbot, closer to the position of my heavy rocket launcher posthuman, just in case he needs it. So here we go. PanO turn 1, Acontecimento, and he's able to use the data tracker special order on this tag. Even though he's only got, I think, 6 or 7 orders left in Group 1 after my push, that data tracker order really helps because the tag's going to be doing most of the work. So predictably, moving into a position where he can just barely see the posthuman. The model in the photo is not positioned where it's actually meant to be. It's supposed to be across here, but it can still gain cover as it's doing this, and we have a shootout. And this is favorable for the tag. Again, I prepared some dice calculator stuff for it earlier because I think this is relevant. So, Tikbalang against posthuman. a 68% chance that it's going to do 1 wound, but I'm okay with that because that 1 wound is going to take 1 order to do, and it's going to leave the post-human there, which is going to force him to have another go at it. The chances of doing 1 wound is 68%, but the chances of doing 2 wounds back to back are a little bit lower than that. 26% chance that another player succeeds. That's a huge win for me because it burns an order, and he's going to have to do it again, and it's going to take him longer to go after my link team and destroy them. Very small % chance of me killing the Tick Belung, but that's beside the point. He's there as a roadblock. I'm not expecting to get much damage done. Of course, there is that tiny percentage chance that the fire just sets him alight and destroys him. I'm not too sure if the fire is actually factored into Dice Calculator, where the chances of inflicting multiple wounds are greater because he's got to keep saving. Don't know if that's factored into this little scenario, but it doesn't really matter. So what happens during the game is that the post-human does take a hit and survives the first shot, but not the second shot, so the tag is able to wipe him out. It takes exactly 2 orders to do that, so slightly above average luck for Pano, but not by much. You know, it's pretty much expected that that's going to happen. That does free the tag to move across here, and luckily because he's moving along the back line of his deployment, he's not coming into line of sight of my post-human sniper, otherwise I definitely would have used that shot. Now sadly, because I spent too many orders trying to deal with that Naga, the tag's able to get a line of sight straight away to this Diva, and the Diva has no cover. So tag, even though he's going up against NWI, and even though the Diva's got 2 shots, ignoring mimetism, sadly the rolls don't turn out that well for me, and the Diva's just killed with 1 shot straight away. So that's a tiny bit unlucky for me, but again, it's expected that the tag's going to do well. The tag's hitting on 15s, because he's just inside the optimal range band, and the Diva's shooting back needing 12s, because it's up against cover, it's got range, ignores the mimetism. So 4 dice 15s versus 2 dice 12s, it's not that surprising that it's going to take 2 wounds right off the bat, although there was a significant chance that I'd roll somewhere in the middling numbers and prevent a few hits and manage to survive with 1 wound intact, and then fall back with the guts move into total cover, and keep the turn going and force him to spend more orders. That didn't happen though. So tag keeps on coming around. He's trying to get into a position where he can take on both the Dakini and the CSU. So initially he goes after, I believe, the HMG at close range band. HMG is going to be terrible at that range band, and the tag's able to rip into him and kill him, and then able to move over here where he can fire at both the CSU and the Dakini over there just to clean them up. At this point, I do get a little bit lucky after all, and the CSU does pump a boarding shotgun slug into him, causing a single wound. So we've managed to hurt him at least, but he does take out the Dakini, and in the following order, he can finally finish off the CSU, destroy it. He's even got an order free to complete the Extreme Prejudice classified. So a 5-man link team completely wiped out now, which is not good for me, and he's picked up as classified. And bear in mind that this is a side that's going to be going second, will have the last turn. So Acontecimento, with an intact data tracker, is going to be able to move into the exclusion zone at the end of the game. Presumably my Sophideck's going to be out there. He can hunt the Sophideck down with his tag. So it's a really good position for Acontecimento to be in. And I have got to say that at this point I'm actually losing. This is not a winning position for Aleph at all. We have the tag moving up to this spot and placing a mine nearby just to protect his flank from this side. He will have a bit of an angle through this part of the battlefield to shoot from, and he has taken a single wound, which I might be able to capitalize on later. But let's have a think about this. This last play is not bad. In hindsight, I think it's a good idea to try and just keep him as safe as possible from the active turn of Aleph. Just find somewhere really secluded for him to hide. Having said that, though, he is tough. He's got mimetism. He's protected by the mind. He's only taken 1 wound. So this is not a terrible position at all. And it's going to be very hard for me to shift him. But he's so important for not just the material and the points, but also being the data tracker and being the one model that's going to cause the game to be won or lost for Acontecimento. So I'm looking at this, and his turn hasn't finished yet. Tech B moving up to the middle console, pressing the button and turning on the heater for his deployment zone, which will mean a lot of his bots and regulars will survive at the end of the game from the heat. So I'm looking at this and thinking, damn, how do I come back? Because I didn't play my first turn particularly well. I got a little bit lucky in some stages, but I feel like I probably should have been a bit more conservative and saved my strength until a little bit later and just taken the easy kills first. My opponents played well enough and rolled well enough to completely eliminate the Link team and the heavy rocket launcher, so I'm very light on guns now, and that's maybe one of the weaknesses of this list. Once you throw away your Spitfire and your HMG and your heavy rocket launcher, what have you really got in the active turn? However, the small ray of hope I have is this long line of fire through to his tag, and I'm looking at that and thinking, well, if I can move my post-human sniper over there, I could shoot, and it might actually be long range for the tag, and given that he's already taken a wound, if I'm quite lucky, I might be able to knock off those last couple of wounds. What may happen is that I shoot him and I do one wound, and then he tries to guts over here and can't get to a point where he's in total cover, and because he can't improve his cover with that guts check, has to stay there, and I get another shot at him, and that might strip that final wound, which could put me back in the game, because if I then stop him from reviving his tag, I'll have a data tracker, he won't, and he won't have any teeth in his list either, because I will have taken out all of his heavy weapons. So if that plan works, I will be back ahead again, but I'll need luck to be on my side for that. So coming back to it, I've got the post-human over here, down at this corner, and it's going to move out here with the first order, out here with the second order, and the third order will bring him into line of sight to shoot from, and he'll shoot down this long angle to the tag's position. I will have 5 orders total. The group includes 6 orders, but there's a Dazju in hidden deployment which is not contributing an order, and I've only got 1 command token left, and I was really reluctant to move it over. Technically, I probably could have moved the lieutenant, because he would have added his own order plus Strategos, and maybe that would have been a better move to actually give the post-human more shots. In fact, that probably was a mistake now that I think about it, not moving the lieutenant into group 2 to give his order and Strategos to the post-human. But what's done was done. I'll have 3 orders for moving there and 2 attempts at shooting. So we get around there and we line up the shot, okay? So I don't have cover, but I do have TO camo and surprise shot, so the chances of the tag shooting back and hitting me are extremely low in this first volley. The post-human does not ignore cover, and we're saying that the tag is going to get cover from this section of the wall and the door here. And I don't ignore mimetism. So if I'm starting at BS 13, it's going to be +3 range, -3 cover, -3 mimetism, hitting on a 10 with 2 dice, and for some reason he opts to shoot back at me with his HMG, which I think is a mistake because he doesn't have a multi-HMG, so at best he can put me into NWI with a hit. But with a dodge, he might be able to roll high enough to actually block a really low shot that connects. I think his physical stat is high enough that even with surprise attack and the tag penalty, Fizz 15, -9, it's actually going to be same odds as shooting, so I take it back. Although one advantage of dodging is that if he crits the dodge, he's going to be able to move out of line of sight, whereas if he crits the shot, I'll be able to fire at him again. So maybe dodging on the weight of it is the better move, just since you can dodge back in this direction, and that might take you out of line of sight. But, you know, now that the game is finished, it's hard for me to go there and shift the model and eyeball what was possible. So we roll the dice, and unbelievably, I get lucky again for another important face-to-face roll in this game, and I roll a crit 10. The secondary shot, I believe, is a miss, so my opponent has to pass 1 armor save and actually fails it. The tag, again, is only armor 6, but he does have cover, has got a beat of 15, and unfortunately fails the throw. So that, again, is bad, and again, I've gone to Dice Calculator and prepared this. So let's have a look at it. It's actually not as bad as I thought. There's a 45% chance that it inflicts a single wound, meaning that I could probably have another go at it, and the chances of me doing 2 wounds back to back aren't really that terrible. They're bad. They're still below 50%, but it's not great. There's still a 15% chance that I actually do it and rip him outright, and that's specifically what happened. So the actual outcome that occurred during this game really was only going to happen 14.76% of the time. The other stats here aren't too relevant, but note also that I'm factoring in surprise attack for this one. The second shot's not going to have surprise attack, so the stats are going to be different, but the chances of me pulling that off were quite low. But from that game position again, what I could have done is I could have moved the lieutenant over. It may not have been possible for the tag to have, gone guts into total cover, meaning that I could have shot him several times, and with several attempts, maybe I did have a decent chance of doing it. But for this particular game, didn't have to worry. I got lucky, and the tag goes unconscious, which is, really important for bringing OSS back in the game. And it kind of means that OSS is now winning again. With Group 1's orders, I'm now moving out with the Sofitect, and this is risky. Sofitect's going to move around, and the plan here is to move the Yudbot through this angle. I've got to avoid his tech B. And we're going to move through here, and with all of the orders, I'm eventually going to get the Palbot, the Yudbot, into this position where the tag is, and remove him from the table with a coup de grace. Having to do that because he's got an engineer over here, and if his engineer moves around and revives the tag, then that means I could lose. So the Yudbot has to come through around this this angle of the table. Once we get to the middle, though, we have to eliminate the Tech B, because if the Tech B fires its stun pistol, that's going to prevent me from actually doing any work, because I'll be stunned. So the Sofitect moves in, fires the combi rifle, somehow fails to kill the Tech B. Has another go at it, fires the combi rifle, somehow fails to kill the Tech B. Has a third go at it, fires the combi rifle at the Tech B crits, and I'm stunned. Now my opponent points out to me at this point, and this is really horrible, not that he's doing something horrible, it's horrible for me I should say, that because the Sofitect can't perform any actions, technically that means that the Yudbot can't either, because the Yudbot's just doing whatever the Sofitect is able to do. It's just following, the synchronization. If that is correct, that means Sofitect can't press any buttons, can't do any reviving, Yudbot can't either, so my attempt to do that is now shut down, which means that I've failed to prevent this possibility of the engineer doing any work. So this is awful. Sofitect, as you can see here, just flailing wildly, but having to move back. I'm setting the Sofitect back up around here. The Yudbot initially thinks about going that way, but then changes his mind and just comes back. As you can see, I was just trying to get to this point here where the tag was. So you've got the Sofitect over here. It's going to relocate to this spot here, actually. So seeing what needs to be done, Sofitect sets up suppression fire here. We know that the tag is there, and we know that the engineer is here. We know that the engineer is going to have to go over here to get to the tag. If I set the Sofitect up at this spot here, it's got NWI. It is the data tracker, so things are a bit dangerous, but a shot down there with suppression fire combi rifle, and through here as well, mind you, means that it's going to be a lot harder for the engineer to do its thing. So this guy ready and waiting. Kind of liking that spot. There's the suppression. And we've got the Tech B, which has moved around previously from some sort of guts check. And there is the little bot. So it comes around to my opponent's turn. What my opponent initially does is he's looking at the board and just feeling a bit tilted, feeling a bit emotionally sort of, not that great that, I've managed to get into this position and kill his tag. And he kind of made a play where he moved out with his engineer, not really looking at the board. I say, well, do you really want to move the engineer there? Because, you're coming in line of sight of this Sofitect with suppression fire, and you're becoming in line of sight of the post-human sniper as well. I'm actually going to show you guys what the photo looks like, even though I haven't taken a photo of it. We're going to just show you over here. So because I didn't take a picture of this, he's got an engineer there, which is moving 4 inches across towards the position of the tag here. I'll have a Sofitect there, which is going to be able to see along that line with suppression fire, but I also have a post-human in this spot, which can actually see through this part of the board, okay? So when he moved out like that, I said, can you just take that back if you don't want to do that, because you're going to get shot at and your chances of living are very, very low. And because he was not really feeling like, playing the game out that much, he said, nah, I'm not going to take it back, I'm just going to dodge. So, of course, the engineer just gets shot instantly. And I said to him, look, I'd be more interested in actually just playing the rest of this game out just to see if you can win. And, he was a bit skeptical about that, but at least we tried. What we did next is we played it out in such a way that the Link team attempted to go after the post-human. That didn't work. Post-human won. He had his doctor come around and revive the Bagmari. Bagmari attempted to shoot the Sofitect. That didn't work, and he lost the Bagmari. He didn't lose the Bagmari at that point. The soft deck took a wound and went prone, so into total cover. And then, of course, I'm bringing out my Dazju over here to move out and go after the Bagmari. So it did still turn out to be a loss for Acontecimento. But there was a point where I'd sort of stopped taking a few photos because he kind of gave up a little bit. So in this photo, you can see the Bagmari going after the Sophitect. She does take one wound and drops prone. We're seeing a shot of the regulars trying to deal with the post-human with that not really working. My Dazju appears later on, goes after the Bagmari, kills it, moves up and grabs an objective, heats up one of the deployment zones, and then pulls back, and we're just basically cleaning things up at this point. We've got the CSU with rifle going after the Tech B to remove it, and then going up to press the other button and just heating the rest of the zones. So it turns out to be a pretty strong win for OSS. Datatracker in the exclusion zone. I'm up on points. He's in retreat. I've got my deployment zone heated. My most recent video was about retreat, by the way, and I just want to come back to the topic again. This was a game where I focused on just killing points as much as I could, and it didn't come back to bite me in any way, shape, or form. Although, to be fair, this mission wasn't so much about butt pressing as it was, or button pressing even, as it was about getting your data tracker in the end there. So it's one of these missions where there isn't really anything significant to do until the last game round, which is a bit of a flaw of the mission, if you ask me. But there's definitely no deterrent for just bashing your opponent up and then scoring at the end. That's just how infiNity works, and the fact that retreat was there definitely didn't make me feel like I ought to take my foot off the gas. Okay, back to the game though. Let's just reflect on a few things. Was I lucky in this game relative to my opponent? Yes. Was I lucky in the orders where it mattered? Yeah, I really was. The points in the game where I really needed things to go right were the Dakini attacking the Bagmari at the start. That went right. And the post-human shooting the tag. That was a risk, and it paid off for me big time. Sure, I was a little bit unlucky where I was trying to slow down his tag with my heavy rocket launcher and my Diva and the rest of my team, and he just steamrolled through me. But that wasn't particularly meaningful. He was going to get all those kills anyway. It wasn't really that surprising that that happened, right? Yes, I was unlucky with my Sophitect being able to get stunned instead of killing his Tech B. But to be honest, it wasn't particularly unlucky because, as you can see, I still had a method of winning the game anyway. I was able to shut down his push with the engineer, and everything worked out fine there. It just would have been a bit of a different game if the first turn had completely stalled, because let's say the Bagmari slugs me twice, I take 4 armor saves, the Dakini HMG is removed, and I've got no way of dealing with them. That would have been terrible. Or if that had all played out and I just failed to kill his Tech Belung, and then his Tech Belung activates and shoots the post-human, killing it, and then goes on to just storm the rest of the table, I would have lost. So I wasn't 100% happy with my play. I felt like I made a misjudgment on range with the Dakini, and with the Link team, I wasn't really prepared for his mine well enough, and I probably should have been a bit more conservative, tried to play the long game a bit more rather than doing such an audacious rush. My opponent, on the other hand, I felt made a couple of small errors, really, with the positioning of his Bagmari initially. With the tag, potentially you could say that he ended the first turn with the tag in a compromising spot, but it's hard to expect a play like that with the post-human being there and having that kind of angle and being able to kill him. So I can't really, blame that play too much for what happened. Hope you guys learned a fair bit. Hopefully the rules were played correctly. If not, I'm sure you guys will let us know. And by the way, I'm cranking out some O12 this weekend, so hopefully have a bat rep next week with my first live game of O12 on the actual table. Really looking forward to that, and as usual, thanks for watching the bat reps.